start off young in D.C. It's crazy down there. None of them was over like 16, 17 years old.
No, hustler is anybody, like you can be a hustler. A hustler is anybody that gets up every single day and figures out a way to make good for themselves in this society. You know, so we had to hustle to find a different way to make means for ourselves.
Young and off the hook, man. Young and off the hook, man. Crazy.
The nation's capital. America's capital.
D.C.'s a town that you wouldn't believe until you're there how much money was there in the 80s. People from New York, Baltimore, California, all over in this town. This was a money town.
The witness said he made so much money he wore a medallion with a 7.5 carat diamond, and he owned 7 cars by age 17.
Prosecutors claim that the alleged organization
been hauling in $1 million a week.
It was estimated
$300 million a year. $300 million a year. $300 million a year.
When you think of D.C., you think of the nation's capital, the White House. Man, the White House. It's the house in the 80s.
Poverty has been rising in recent years.
Money and drugs was the Reaganomics era of the 80s. People from all over the country came to D.C. because the profit margin was high. Also high was the violence. Before the crack era and the label murder capital, D.C. was known as Chocolate City for being the first major city with a predominantly black population. D.C. is also where the famous I Have a Dream speech was delivered in 1963 by Martin Luther King at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, the largest attended speech in history.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
Dark brown shades of my skin only add color to my tears. Oh, that splash against my hollow bones that rocks my soul.
You watch SpongeBob and Plankton keep trying to find the recipe to his Krabby Patties. That's the mumbo sauce, man. Nobody know what's in it. Everybody love it though.
DC is also the creators of the world's famous mambo sauce and go-go music, a style of music Beyonce honored in her 2003 hit song, Crazy Right Now.
This was music that was oriented here in the Washington area. When the violence started, the bands itself, they started losing places to perform. All of the places that you go, if you go in, the landlords, they're very leery about bringing in go-go because they say it causes violence. It's not the violence that causes music. It comes from things that are happening in the street.
For the second year in a row, Washington has the highest murder rate in the nation. They are victims in a vicious war over drugs.
Washington City Council member John Ray says the drug crisis won't change until the realities of urban poverty do.
If you are a 12-year-old black kid, living in Southeast Washington, D.C., and you look at the opportunities, the future is not very bright for you. So to them, selling drug is a logical choice. It's a logical choice. And we've got to do something that will make that youngster realize that selling drug is not a logical choice. And you're not going to do that if every day when that child wakes up, he's faced with the surroundings of the ghetto. With the surroundings of the ghetto.
Man, a lot of money was flowing, man. I mean, a lot of money was flowing, man. The money was crazy. We was young, man. I went to jail at 20. I'm getting real money from 16 to 20. 16 to 20. 16 to 20.
Born and raised in Langston Terrace, the northwest part of Washington, D.C., at a time when it was called Chocolate City for its majority of black residents and black-owned businesses. Kurt Bone, at a young age, was considered a leader and fighter in his neighborhood, who admired the older guys that was involved in the street culture, and made a decision he also wanted to be part of acquiring monetary gains for himself and his friends. In 1981, at 12 years old, Kurt Bone became a street pharmacist. By the mid-'80s, he met Rayful Edmonds, the biggest dealer in D.C. at that time, supplying over 60% of Washington, D.C.
With Slim, you got to keep in mind, like you hear a lot of people's names around the country that was getting money, and a lot of people was getting money all over the country, no matter what city you from. Slim was unique because he was getting money on a retail level and a wholesale level simultaneously. Slim had two things simultaneously going on, and when you saying you creating other dudes like myself and other guys that had a lower standard, which you already had set up all around, and outside the script. So the money was crazy. We was young.
Kurt Bone's situation with Rayful was not the average. Although the government tried to tie him to Rayful's organization, he never worked for him. Kurt Bone was an independent contractor with his own organization and was just being supplied by Rayful. Rayful was his connect only.
It was tough, you know what I'm saying, because at the time when crack hit, it ended up bringing guests into the house. When I say guests, you're talking out of town as far as like New York guys and Jamaica's guys.
So I wound up getting a couple of $100,000 out of my stash, wound up just going down there being a wholesaler. So in all of that, I wound up meeting some other cats. This young cat by the name of Pop, Kid Rayful, he was like one of the biggest cats coming up out of D.C.
We was down to chapter 3, and the dude Alpo pulled up. I didn't really know him, but I knew who he was. And me and Ray and us was guy. I said, Ray, he got more money than you. He was like, who? I said, that dude Alpo. Ray was like, hell no. And they can't touch my money. He said he know he can't touch my money. And Alpo came up and spoke to him and was like, he showed Ray much love. I said, yeah, Ray got money.
But I wound up meeting him, and the process of putting coke in that town, I wound up meeting some cats named Kurt Bone.
People keep saying he came to D.C. after Wayne. He was down in D.C. probably since '86 or something like that. So he didn't just come to D.C.
By the time 1987 came around, Kurt Bone was on a different level, bringing in millions in profit while still a teenager. Kurt Bone was now the connect to many kingpin organizations in different cities up and down the East Coast, including Young Millionaires in D.C., like Andre Tank Johnson. At 12 years old, like most young kids at that time, Tank became a street pharmacist. In 1986, he eventually moved to selling powder on 16th Street with one of the older hustlers with his best friend, Ears the Christ. Tank would eventually take over the strip by being more consistent with a New York connect that was giving Tank $5,000 bundles of Tank would profit $2,000 and the connect would get $3,000. This arrangement didn't last long. Tank started to stack up his money and moved up to purchasing multiple kilos at a time when he got hooked up with Kurt Bone.
I ended up meeting Andre through somebody that I was serving that was his partner. He was one of my customers.
Tank and Ears became young D.C. millionaires, moving multiple kilos per day, doing hand-to-hand sales on their D.C. block. In 1989, at 16 years of age, Ears was kidnapped. The kidnappers were initially looking for Tank, but when they entered one of the stash houses and found Ears, they made a decision to grab him, knowing Tank would give up money for his return.
I gave him Dre Beeper number and a different code. Which a code we already, if something happened, that's the code saying something happened.
Ears was held for over 5 hours, and $1 million was demanded for the ransom, which then dropped to $500,000. Once the kidnappers found out how young Ears was, they told him, money or no money, we will let you go safely. And they did just that, sparing Ears' life because of how young he was.
Time gone, come on. I guess Dre gave him some money. So they took me to some woods. So I'm just tension up while I'm walking. This I thought I was gonna get killed at. So they gave me a handcuff key and a quarter. And they said count to 100 or something they said. So I counted. I could hear footsteps backing up. I stayed there for like 10 more minutes. Turned around, took the head on my head. I broke out the woods with the handcuffs on.
That same year in 1989, Andre's connect Kurt Bone was arrested, caught in the Rayful Edmonds indictment, and now facing a conspiracy charge that included a 35 to life sentence.
funny thing about it, we all thought it was just his business they was in. We was like doing our own thing. Like the police and the court system made it like it was one big crew, but it really wasn't no one big crew. So when they pulling me up, I'm saying channel 9, seeing man 5. So I'm saying to myself, tonight I get locked up, some big shit happening. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't never really even fathomed that I was the big shit. Everybody was like, "You're a movie star. You're all over TV. You're a big movie star." So I was like, "This shit must be big."
You know, when he went to jail, I would go to D.C. with 30 bricks and sell them all in one day. I had anywhere from 10 to 15 good customers because I was giving it to them at a good price. Because if D.C. was letting them go, if someone had them in D.C. for 21, 22, I was letting them go for 18.
When Kurt Bone and Rayful got snatched by the feds, D.C. was dry. It wasn't too many people with real weight and good prices, unless you go up to New York. Alpo was already bringing bricks down to D.C., so he fell right into that situation.
Tank actually reached out to me and say what he think about doing some business with him. I said, he getting a few joints, you know what I'm saying? You could do something with him, he ain't a bad guy. And they end up, bonding a relationship at that point.
This guy was spending a lot of money. Man, the man was spending about $400,000 every month with me. About $400,000 every month. At least that. He was about getting $1.
Tank started to move too fast for Alpo. Him and Ears was doing a couple bricks a day right on their block. Alpo couldn't keep up, so Tank started to look for a more consistent connect with better prices. Tank met a Colombian plug who started to supply him what Alpo couldn't. A price at $14,000 a key, while Alpo's price was $17 to $18 per kilo. At this time, Alpo and another young D.C. millionaire named Big Head Gary became cool.
He was a short kind of guy. He was about 5'1", 5'2", real slim in the body, but he was getting money though. People didn't know he was getting money. At that time, he was probably holding about $1 million, $2 million, and people didn't know that he was holding like that. He was getting it.
Alpo started messing around with Tank Girl, and Tank was messing with Gary's girl.
This kid Andre, he was messing with my man Gary's girl. We found out about it, and I'm boying Andre's girl, so I'm like, oh man.
In the middle of this game was millions of dollars in cash and kilos at play. That mixture can easily result in. Although the true events that lead up next is unclear, the outcome was Andre Tank Johnson being killed.
I was fucked up at that. And that's that moment when I got that news. That's what made me cut him off and never spoke to him again.
Alpo would blame Big Head Gary, whose friendship was already on shaky grounds.
I always told them before this happened, I said, we know so much about one another that if we was to ever get into any type of confusion or anything, one of us would have to leave. And I'm definitely not, because I'm getting money. So the only thing else is one of us will have to die. So time went on. One day me and him and one of his workers would sit at a table at a restaurant having a sandwich. And he called my wife a bitch. Called my wife a bitch because he was like, man, you still with that crazy bitch? And I just looked over at him. And I could have took it a little better if it was just me and him. But one of his workers was there. Right. And I kind of like gave him that look like, yo, you really disrespected me right now. Now, I got this deal coming up with this connect, this crazy big deal. Like, yo, they want me to put up like $2 million. They was going to hit me with like probably about $6 million worth of coke. It was at like $11,000 a key, $10,000 a key. He tells somebody down in Lawton prison about this deal. Only thing he didn't know that the same person that he's telling, they know my man, Wayne. My man Wayne, he get to me and say, yo, you about to put a deal together in New York for this, that, and it's going to put gas. I said, what the hell? I said, how you know? He said, well, man, my man called me down from Lawton. He said, Gary told him that.
Alpo Martinez would eventually kill Gary.
You got a pre-Alpo, you got a post-Alpo. You know what I'm saying? So the pre-Alpo was on best behavior. He wasn't doing none of that. But I was incarcerated when it happened.
Kurt Bone was still incarcerated at this time fighting his case. Spending close to $100,000 on lawyer fees, Kurt Bone turned down multiple plea deals from the government, while him and his attorney put together a money laundering package, and the government eventually dropped the Rayful Edmonds conspiracy connection. Kurt Bone received a money laundering charge. He was released in 1993 after serving 4 years in federal custody, leaving the drug game in his past. Kurt Bone became a part party promoter making six figures legally and started his clothing brand All Days, worn by athletes and certified players of the culture. He also has a successful YouTube channel called Kirkbone TV with an agenda to save lives and give jewels.
My name is Kirkbone. I'm from Washington, D.C. I want to take all those life experiences that allowed me to survive the jungle and share it with the world through exchanging jewels.
You gotta remember the era they came up in, man. Like, I think that 80s, early 90s era might have been the hardest era to come up in as a little nigga. As anything, streets trying to do anything because there was no beliefs for nothing. Remember, everybody was doing bad.
Washington City Council member John Ray says the drug crisis won't change until the realities of urban poverty do.
If you're a 12-year-old black kid, living in Southeast Washington, D.C., and you look at the opportunities, the future is not very bright for you. So to them, selling drug is a logical choice. It's a logical choice. And we've got to do something that will make that youngster realize that selling drug is not a logical choice. And you're not going to do that if every day when that child wakes up, he's faced with the surroundings of the ghetto.
I was tired of the world thinking that the people in our neighborhoods do crimes out of enjoyment. These niggas ain't animals. They do what they do out of lack of resources, and if they had the opportunity to do anything else, bro, they would.
Hustler's anybody, like you can be a hustler. A hustler is anybody that gets up every single day and figures out a way to make good for themselves in this society. Hustler's anybody who has the drive to make something happen for himself. It so happened for us being in the street, hustlers meant that we had to find a different way because there were no jobs available. The school system was, so we had to hustle to find a different way to make means for ourselves.
Which we call the American
hustlers. If you believe it, then you too can be a hustler.
By any means necessary.
Hustlers. Republicans and Democrats.
Conservatives, labor, the seller, the buyer, the product, the producer. So you are what you are.
Hustlers.
Is absorbed and adored by those that don't understand the laws that govern.
Hustlers.
It allows you to make up your own laws and create brand new works.
Hustlers. The mentality, an American way. If you believe it, then you too can be a hustler. Damn, it feels good.
Damn, it feels good to be a
hustler.
How they be just down to drug dealers this, drug dealers that. But now you got all the rappers, they acting like they want to be drug dealers, and then you got niggas that's drug dealers that just want to get out the game, and then you got these cats acting like they playing the game. They make it bad for people like us, cause it's like, they make it seem like it's alright to live that life when it's like, but when it comes from us, it's basically we just trying to just let it be known that you can live that life, but this is what can happen if you live that life. So it's up to you because the ball is in your hand.